Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you very much. I always appreciate hanging out with me for a little bit. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. This is my review of a classic black and white Christmas film from 1947 from director George Seaton, Miracle on 34th Street. There is a remake of this film that came out in 1994. It's also very good, but I am all about the classics, all about the originals, and so that's why I'm talking about the original version. This movie stars Maureen O'Hara. You also have John Payne, Edmund Gwenn, and a very young Natalie Wood, who of course went on to be a big star when she became an adult. And this basically is a story, a very heartfelt, moving story about Santa Claus and what would it be like if he was in our real world and the consequences that would face that kind of situation. Actor Edmund Gwenn plays the role of Kris Kringle in the film, and at the very beginning of the movie, we see him walking down the street during the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City, and he notices that the Santa Claus that they hired is a little inebriated and intoxicated, and so he doesn't approve, and he calls the attention to the person that is in charge of the parade, who is played by Maureen O'Hara in the film in the role of Doris. Of course, Doris can't use the Santa that she hired because he's drunk, and so she has to fire him, but she's on the spot, and she asks the real Santa, who she doesn't know is the real Santa, to take his place. And at first he's a little bit reluctant, but he ultimately accepts because all the kids are waiting and everything, and so he is, after all, Santa Claus, and he knows that it's very important, and so he puts on the suit, gets on the float, he's in the parade, everybody loves it, they all think that he is one of the best Santas ever, and so he becomes real popular. In the film, Doris is a single mom whose only child, little Susan, is raised a certain way by her mom. Her mom doesn't indulge any kid-like fantasies. She keeps things very real with her child, and because of that, little Susan is very smart, very bright, but she also doesn't have any of that kid-like wonder because of her mom taking away a lot of that stuff by telling her that there's no Santa Claus and just giving it very straight to her about certain things. Also in the film is actor John Payne in the role of Fred Gailey, a lawyer who has kind of a thing for Susan's mom, Doris, and meets little Susan kind of to get to her mother. Very slick guy, but also pretty down to earth and sincere, and he's a nice guy, and so Doris does kind of like the guy, but she still kind of keeps him at arm's length a bit. But soon Doris is faced with a dilemma when she realizes that the man she hired to play Santa Claus in the parade might actually think that he is Santa Claus. When she sees his employment application and stuff, he has Kris Kringle in there, and it says he's from the North Pole, and so she thinks, okay, this guy might be off his rocker a little bit. There's this guy, Mr. Sawyer, who works for Macy's, who Doris has examined Kris for his mental competence, and during the examination, Kris Kringle points out a few things about Sawyer that he doesn't really appreciate, points out how he's a bit insecure, and so after the examination, doesn't go very well because he ultimately just pisses off this Sawyer guy, and so afterwards he goes to Doris and tells her that this guy is gonna turn out to be, crazy and a lunatic. However, there is this other guy that comes in to talk to Doris and Sawyer, who has been a friend of Kris for a number of years, and he kind of disputes and contradicts the things that Sawyer says he doesn't agree with anything that he has to say in terms of his diagnosis about Kris, says he's a good guy, he's a well-mannered guy, a good-natured guy who would never hurt anybody, and so Doris kind of takes his advice over the Sawyer guy. I gotta talk a bit about Edmund Gwenn in the role of Kris Kringle in this film because it is a great performance, so good in fact that he won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for this role. And watching the movie, if you appreciate great acting, you'll see why. The man really embodies the spirit and the feel and the vibe of the character of Santa Claus, not just the look. There's a really nice moment in the film where we see Kris Kringle talking to Doris, Maureen O'Hara's character, telling her his motivation for wanting to stick around and be her Santa Claus. And as it turns out, he's getting kind of fed up with all the commercialism surrounding Christmas. He really wants to spread that Christmas cheer personally and make sure that kids and everybody around can really feel the actual spirit of the holiday because, as he says, it's more than just a day, it's a state of mind. In the film, Kris Kringle's personality and generosity seems to affect those around him in positive ways. There's this young guy in the movie that wants to be more like Kris and give presents and be generous and do nice things for people. And when this Sawyer guy sees that, he just tells him, the only reason he does that is because he has like a guilt complex. And that really gets on Kris Kringle's nerves. He goes to see Sawyer about it, confronts him about it, and he gets a bit heated to the point where he actually raises his cane to the guy's head, pops him right on the head. It's a very nice little moment, actually. You don't ever think you'll see Santa actually get a little bit violent, just a tad bit violent with a person, but there is actually a point where you don't want to cross with Kris Kringle. He might just raise that cane and just bap you on the head like he does in this movie. And so the Sawyer guy doesn't really appreciate that. He decides that he's going to have Santa committed. John Payne's character, Fred Gailey, who is a lawyer and does think of Kris Kringle as a friend, takes it upon himself to represent Kris, and there is a hearing, and basically it's the state of New York versus Kris Kringle, and, you know, they want to prove that he's not the real Santa. And so Fred Gailey's job is to make sure that the state of New York and the rest of the world know that Kris Kringle is the real deal. Watching the film, you can see that even at a very young age, little Natalie Wood was a very talented little actress, because as a little girl, she was very good at conveying the sweetness of the character, but also the intelligence, and also every now and then you can tell she was a bit kind of confused and kind of clashing with her mom's ideals and teachings. The character of Fred does try to remain respectful with Doris when it comes to her own beliefs about how to talk to little Susan, and he does try to keep that in mind, but at the same time, he's kind of a hopeful character and kind of a whimsical character himself. I do remember being a little kid thinking about Santa Claus and wondering if he's real, if he's not, do I believe, do I not believe, and going through that phase of, you know, starting to grow up and that belief slowly kind of going away. But you get older and you really want to believe in certain things, and watching a film like this in the way this story is depicted, you can kind of get a little bit hopeful at times, because they do a very good job at making you believe in this character. And what if this guy was around walking the world today? What would he say? What would he do? What would he think? And this movie has a really great representation of that idea. When I watch a movie like this, it makes me want to believe in things that I haven't believed in a very long time. And this is a great movie, not just for kids, but adults. Well, kids of all ages, really. I know I'm definitely a 41-year-old kid still. But yeah, this is a 4-star classic. This is one of the greatest Christmas movies. It's a great black and white classic. It's a movie that I highly recommend for the holidays, for the whole family, or even if you're all by yourself and you want to see a classic Christmas movie. Miracle on 34th Street is a great story, great time, and yeah, great performances, great direction throughout the film. You even have a small role there for William Frawley in there from I Love Lucy, who played the role of Fred Mertz in that classic sitcom in a small part. I can't say enough about this movie. It is a great classic Christmas film that more people should definitely check out if they haven't seen. I am positive you can find this on streaming, but you know I'm going to have a hard copy of this movie because I am a fan. And so here it is, my copy of the film on DVD. As you can see there, little Natalie Wood there as little Susan, and you got Kris Kringle there on the side there next to her. Miracle on 34th Street. Thank you all very much for watching this classic movie review. I very much appreciate it. If you're into movies, if you're into classics, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell for notifications on more classic movie reviews coming your way. Please don't forget to comment, share, like. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for your support. I always appreciate it. And please don't forget to look out for the next classic movie review. Everybody take care of each other. Till next time, hope you have a safe and happy holiday. God bless. Peace out.